are here. Here's Jerusalem. And we are looking at Ashdod. Okay, here, I'll hold it up so everybody can see. Jerusalem to Ashdod, not very far. Okay, that's the entire, almost the entire width of the land. And we are basically looking at it right now. Again, only because of the haze, we can't actually see that far. But trust me, Ashdod is right there. That is important for our next horizon, because we want to understand something about the way that Jerusalem develops. And this specific story that we're going to tell now is going to directly tie into what we'll be discussing tomorrow morning when we go to the city of David. Going back to our Jacob story that we began with, right? Jacob becomes Israel. Jacob then loses his beloved wife Rachel, but at the same time gains his 12th and final son, Benjamin, right? This kind of completes then the picture of the next generation, right? Jacob, as Israel, is the father of the 12 tribes, right? That's the setup then that is going to continue for quite a few generations as the Israelites become a nation. In the early part of the story, it's really all about the family connection, but eventually, as that family grows and grows and grows, it really becomes referred to as a people, right? Even in the Hebrew, it goes from family to people. And so those people experiencing a drought in their beloved land of Canaan, ship down to Egypt, right? Spend some time there, not always having so much fun. They eventually sneak out, right, under the leadership of Moses, after they become slaves, and spend 40 years wandering around the desert. This entire time, they are traveling as the 12 tribes, right? We see constant descriptions in the biblical text of them wandering in the desert, and every time they camp at night, they camp as their 12 tribes, right? This is important setup, because when they finally, at the end of that 40-year period, even though their ancestors are long gone, right, the progenitors of the tribes, they're still identifying tribally or family. And so when they arrive into the promised land, one of the first things that we understand is that as they cross over the Jordan and make their way up into the hills, they are told to divide up by tribe and go conquer their allotments. Which is why when you open up your average Bible, right, in the back in the index of helpful resources, you will often see a map that looks something like this, color-coded based on the tribal allotments that God gives to Joshua in the early chapters of the same named book. Okay? So this apparently was the plan. God says, go in and inherit the land, right? Clear it out from the locals, perhaps a slightly controversial political event, but I'm not taking responsibility for that. But nonetheless, the tribes then go in and immediately have to deal with the struggle against the Canaanite tribes. And this presents an interesting challenge, because on one hand, you might think that if God tells you this is the plan, that's actually what's going to happen. But guess what? It doesn't happen that way, because as the Israelites first come into the land, it seems, based on the textual descriptions, they are fairly successful, right? For example, one of the early chapters of Joshua lists a whole long line of kings of various cities on the mountain plain in the middle, where the Israelites are successful, they are victorious. But what happens as the tribes start to fan out in various directions in order to conquer the periphery of the land? They start to lose the battles. We are constantly bumping into verses that say things like, and the Israelites were forced to dwell with the Canaanites in their land, or variations on that theme, right? May have not been the worst thing in the world, but certainly if you're given the plan that God says, go do this, and it doesn't work out that way, you might be scratching your head thinking, what's wrong with this picture? And perhaps the fatal flaw, which the Israelites eventually kind of own up to, is that they don't seem to have a unified push to complete this task. They are doing it as 12 separate entities, which any military strategist will tell you is a dumb idea. It's not going to work. And so the 12 tribes come together, they approach the prophet Samuel, and they say, hey Sam, we need what all the other nations have, but we weren't supposed to have, which is a king, right? We want somebody who's going to bring us together, lead us into battle, and take care of this particular task. And so Samuel appoints the first king of Israel, Saul, right? Who attempts to do just that. We know, of course, he was not tremendously successful, but let's be, fair to him. He didn't exactly get a job manual, how to be king of Israel. So probably not easy being the first king. He had tried, we certainly know that, but this now brings us to the exact horizon we are looking at, because now we'll do a little bit of the setup, okay? Of the, are you getting this all on video?